Kudos to you guys for hopping on at the last minute.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So good morning or good afternoon or wherever you happen to be. Welcome. Today, I'm talking to Sandy Rakowitz, and Sandy and I had a really great conversation in the
Mhm.
interview that we did for the summit. So that is not to be missed. Make sure that you're registered so that you grab that. Today, we're going to touch on a topic that um, probably is relevant to a lot of folks. You know, dogs on leash and off leash. It's a question. When can you trust that you can take your dog off leash? When is it safe? What if you're walking your dog on leash and there's other dogs? And it's different if you have a big dog or a little dog. So Sandy and I had been chatting about that a few minutes ago. So Sandy, what is the best advice or the best insight, I guess, you can give folks about this whole question of dogs on leash and off leash?
Yes. First of all, hi everybody.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I was talking with somebody last night at a dance about dogs off leash and on leash, um, and it really just brought this question to my attention again because although I'm sure that the people who are listening here who are coming to this series are very mindful people, otherwise, hence your being here, which I really truly appreciate. It's really important to be mindful about where you're walking your dogs, where you're taking them, and and discerning this level of safety, like being super mindful about it. The conversation started because she started dating somebody who had a blue heeler or has a blue heeler who's young and they live in the country. And so that dog doesn't have a lot of training, but and is able to just be out and be free. And we live in California, so that somebody is able to be on their own property and be out and free is in a large space is a big deal. And but when they come to her place down in town, and the doors are open and the dog rushes out and rushes people suddenly and with their dogs, that's really scary. And she was just talking to me about how people get really scary and how it's a point of contention in their relationship. It's a new relationship. And yeah, I'm kind of like, I mean, I didn't say this, but I'm kind of like, yeah, you need to be really, really careful about such things. And it might not always be your dog. It might be somebody that you're staying with, even, or this situation, or
Mhm.
somebody that you're, partnering up with. And it's a big, huge concern. And often the people who have dogs, this is a big generalization, and I hope not to offend anybody, but to bring this to really clear attention. If you have a dog and you have people walking by and your dog tends to be rushing out, um, as a reactive, usually sensitive, but reactive dog, that's actually just not okay because the people being rushed, the dogs being rushed, it's traumatizing. It's
Mhm.
really, really scary. And she told me another story. I won't tell the whole story, but they were walking in a cove, there was a little dog and a big dog, and they had a really bad encounter. They were all off leash. And you it's like before I had a dog who was reactive, this was not in my awareness. I'm
Mhm.
just saying, before I had a reactive dog who was reactive on leash, who was very vigilant about who she saw and was very resource protective of me, I had no idea about any of that stuff. Like she was my initial education.
Mhm.
And I think that we just don't always, we don't know what we don't know yet, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And the perspective of the person who who has the dog that is rushing people compared to the point of view of the person who's being rushed, if they have a dog with them, whether it's a big dog, a little dog, whether it's a confident dog or a sensitive dog, there's going to be a reaction
Yeah.
of the person and the dog.
Yeah,
And it's really not fair. It's not fair to either of the dogs. It's not fair to the person who suddenly sees a dog coming toward them. They don't know what that dog's intentions are. And most people are
exactly.
going to tense up and be really scared.
Yeah, it's very
And
true.
right. So it's a, you know, and we can't really blame the dog that does the rushing, right? It's a it's a management responsibility of the people who are in charge of that dog to set realistic boundaries. And you mentioned that the dog was in the country and so had a lot of freedom to roam about, and that's a great thing. We love that for our
Yep.
dogs. And
Yes.
yet, when we put the dog in a different environment, we just can't expect that dog to make all of those adjustments that we've made in our brain because the dog doesn't understand all of those things. So it's a management responsibility. And I know that you have a particular concern about little dogs.
Yeah.
And I can share that also because I've had little dogs for decades. So I see that from, the parenting a little dog and looking out for their physical safety. We have to think of their emotional safety as well. Because there's a story that I share about a little dog that was rushed by a big dog. I won't do that now unless we have time at the end, but can you talk um, about that, about the concern for little dogs?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. And then I want to circle back to something that you said, and about what to do with, excuse me, what to do with dogs on leash. We have in the talk that we had that's coming up, um, we talk a lot about exactly that. And so I just
Mm,
wanted to point that out, that you can
yeah,
get a, we had a very, very lively, juicy conversation about that, which
we did.
I'm
Yeah.
excited to have come out. So, um, little dogs and mindfulness. Yeah. So in my office, I have gotten so many little dogs coming in who've been attacked and um, uh, who have been traumatized being on leash. And because I'm an animal communicator, I really get their perspective
Mhm.
of what their experiences are. A lot of times, dogs will come out of nowhere very suddenly, like the person just, it was like kind of blindsided type of encounter. Other times, you'll see another dog coming on leash, and you have and the small dogs have, they just have a more challenging time because of their size. And so what I'll see from their eyes, is like this, literally often like a giant to them,
Mhm.
because the little ones are low to the ground and I'm seeing out from their eyes, and there's like this big-eyed, big mouth, big head, long-legged thing, like, and
Yeah.
it's it's a scary thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I, when helping animals to gain confidence, especially the little dogs, where they're easy to pick up, I generally, when we're working with them, I generally encourage people to actually leave them on the ground, but that's in a very safe environment that's very secure. And I generally don't advocate carrying little dogs around so that they can have their sense of groundedness on the ground. But in these kinds of situations, I absolutely pick those dogs up. You
Mm.
know, you know, I it's like do whatever you can to keep those dogs safe. Um, yeah, and again, we talk about in the upcoming talk about ways to help them if they've been traumatized and some of those alert behaviors. And certainly that's something that I work with people with one-to-one all the time with,
Yeah.
and helping to understand from both sides, from things that you can do as the animal's person, um, uh, for calming the nervous system and so forth, but also from getting their perspective and then helping through healing work to be able to help them through that and to get very different perspectives. Like I'm thinking of uh, a couple of different dogs where in the past year, some different kinds of information has been coming through that's more spiritually based and helping the animals from their own guides, uh, which just hadn't been coming up before so much. It was more from having helping the person from those perspectives. But it's been very fascinating and extremely helpful. And those when that information comes through for those, usually it's been dogs. It's incredibly comforting and grounding. Like their behavior just really changes. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And without that kind of support, um, a traumatic experience, and the trauma is how the individual processes that
Yes.
experience.
Yeah.
One dog might be absolutely terrified and traumatized, and another one might be scared but handles it. So it's an individual thing, but the dog that's traumatized, it takes a while for them to come back, to feeling safe again. It doesn't just happen quickly. It's not like a switch that you can flip on and off. So yeah, can you see the chat, Cindy? Because
I
Sean,
can. I was just
yeah,
I was just reading
yeah,
Sean's I'm gonna read it out loud. I walk
okay.
my cockapoos on a leash, but my neighbors don't always. Yes, this is what happens. I have repeatedly asked them to have them on leash, which is a law in the Virgin Islands. Here too, in in my county, it doesn't always mean that happens. There are a lot of rescue pit bulls who have been fought. Wow. They are unpredictable. I have been attacked, as have my dogs. Oh my gosh. But the other thing was when off leash ran in front of my dog who tried to chase her to play and dislocated my shoulder. As a result, I can't walk my dogs. Oh my God, Sean.
Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
this are the
there,
things that can
yeah,
happen.
that's really unfortunate that, the environment is, radar feels bad about it too, right?
So
Um,
sorry.
yeah, there are things that you can do to stimulate and exercise your dogs indoors. And I know you're in the Virgin Islands, so I don't know what your accessibility is to like a safe place, not a dog park, but a safe place, um, where you can be relatively, you know, confident that you're not going to run into those off-leash dogs. So I just had to chip in with that. Sandy,
Yeah. Yeah,
what's
it's a very challenging situation and you have a fenced yard and I'm so grateful that you have a fenced yard. There's unfortunately when your neighbors are not interested in being responsible dog people, in this regard, it's a difficult situation. I don't have a solution for that particular scenario, unfortunately, at the
yeah.
moment. And generally speaking, I want to say about choosing where you take your dogs is this is exactly why it's super important. You're so welcome for the support, Sean. My gosh. And I just want to say a little bit about dog parks. You know, I live in California on the coast, so there's dog beaches, and I generally speaking, on the dog beaches, I've seen dogs behaving pretty well, but there I hear stories from the people who come to me that they didn't have a good experience on the beach when their dog was loose and other dogs were loose. And it can be very scary because the beach is a big place. There's a lot of energy unless it's a super calm day, but there's still, it's like when dogs get free that haven't been used to getting free, the level of rambunctiousness and unpredictability can go up. And so um, I have thought about it. I don't currently have dogs. I've thought about it if I would actually get a dog again, if I would be bringing them to the beach just for these reasons. I would be tending not to as much as I would want to, you know,
Mhm.
unless it was, I know that there's like in Southern California, they have certain restrictions about behavior with dogs on a beach, in a very conscious manner. And they are um, like I think it's like peer supervised. So they really enforce it. And the dogs, like I've seen videos, like there's really super happy, well socialized
Mhm.
dogs who are really with really responsible people. And that so I just want to say that that's possible to create it in
Mhm.
communities. Um, but generally speaking, you have to be super, super discerning about where you're going to be walking your dogs. And it's really a challenge, including dog parks. You think
Mhm.
that dog parks would be good, but there's a lot of dogs that I have told some of my clients who are questioning, maybe, I'd like to go to a dog park, and I would be like, with this scenario, with your dog sensitivity, I wouldn't go unless I knew the dogs at the dog park and you knew that they were really well socialized. Like, meaning that they know how to read like other dogs' behaviors. So many dogs are brought up in not understanding dog to dog behavior well because they're not used to being able to be with other dogs and play well without continuing to escalate. And a lot of people don't understand those signals, even. I've spent a lot of time looking at this and working with dogs and coaching dogs who don't have those social skills, like what that glance means, what that flick of the ear means, based on what other dogs have told me, and really coaching them. I had to do that with my dog Liza, really coaching them, like, you can't just go and stare, because that was her thing. I said, you, like, this
Yeah.
is what happens when you stare. And she, like, I had to help her work through um her stuff so that she could soften those places, and not use it
Yeah.
as like her harumphy
Yeah.
bossiness.
Right. And so many of our dogs have a history of trauma, and we don't know when we take them into a dog park how they're going to feel about the individual dogs that they meet or the people that they meet. Something might trigger that trauma response again. And I think it's people think that I would really like to go to the dog park with my dog, but I think the real question is, does your dog want to go to the dog park?
It's a
And if the
really
dog
good
doesn't enjoy
question.
it, then there's no value in it.
And I think that we, as their human guardians, owe it to our dogs to learn about what those social dog to dog behaviors are like. So the first person that I know of who came out with a really awesome book that has grown in popularity and understanding is called Calming Signals by Turid Ruges.
Yes.
She's Norwegian, and her first book just went through all of these signals. And now you can look her up and others on YouTube and watch what those things look like. And like, I grew up with horses more, I didn't have my own dogs in my house. Like, we weren't allowed to have pets as I was growing up. So sad, I know, but, and amazing given the work that I do now, but I'm still making up for that.
Yeah,
um,
right.
but like I didn't like I knew horse signals, but I didn't know dog signals. I was just until, as in my Tellington Teach Touch training, that we had these lengthy discussions and watched the interactions with the dogs in our groups and really talking about the subtle nature of their signals um, and how they communicate um, and what escalation means. So we'll mistake playfulness, not regular range of play, but as they keep playing, some dogs will just keep escalating in excitation. And that's when the roughhousing like starts getting into more dangerous tumbling, blocks, ramming, chasing at an escalated pace. And it can shift in a nanosecond. And a
Mhm.
lot of people will laugh it off, and that's when the danger is much more possible, because that level of excitation gets to a heightened state and the dogs aren't bringing themselves down. And it's like, I want people to intervene before that starts. And it doesn't
Excellent.
have to be a harsh reprimand. It can be, when your dog has really good recall and you've done your homework with really good recalls, and uh, or you can just break up the challenge. But it also takes everybody whose dogs are involved in that, because sometimes there can be 3 and 4 dogs involved in those little escapades, that everybody's in agreement that and
Yeah,
and
that's the
that
problem.
takes
Yeah.
communication among people and
Mhm.
really sticking with gaining understanding. And a lot of times people get very defensive in
Mhm.
those situations. So you have to, there's a lot of dynamics that can be involved in the dog park in helping that. And, I learned a lot from a woman who, at the time, another T-Touch practitioner who spent a huge amount of time, created a dog park specifically so that she could create a mindful training ground, because she was also doing training as in addition to T-Touch. She spent enormous amount of time, made videos that I wish she had published, and really, in order to enter that dog park, you had to sign an agreement about social behaviors with dogs. So, like, these things are possible to create. It takes a lot of work and consciousness,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
but I just want to like keep saying it's possible to create what you need if it's something that you really, like, get a group of friends together and create your own space where where that you can have good conscious playtime with your dogs, and you're all in agreement of what you need amongst your dogs, because you want everybody to be very safe and really truly have your dogs enjoy it. Because we can say, oh yeah, of course my dog wants to go to the dog park, but we don't always and often sometimes people don't actually recognize when their dogs are starting to get fearful.
That is so true. And it kind of goes along with what I was thinking about as I was listening to you describe these potential interactions and when people need to intervene. And so many times when there's a clash between two dogs, people will describe it as it just happened out of the blue. There was no warning. And what that means is that they're not attuned
That's
to
right.
the dog's behaviors. And you're talking about that escalating anxiety. And dogs can get defensive, and that can look like aggression because they're trying to defend themselves, but
Right.
uh, it's really fearfulness. So there are so many levels of
Yes. Yes.
emotion and behavior
Yes.
and
Yes.
decision
Yes.
making that's going on there. It
Yes.
really it's a big responsibility, and we need to be educated. So
Yeah.
that's the mission
Yeah.
that you and I share, is educating people,
Yeah, absolutely. And
better
I just
caretakers. Yeah.
absolutely. And you often don't seek that education unless you're having to deal directly with those situations. Like myself, I didn't know any better before I got Liza as found her as a stray, and she started displaying these behaviors that kept increasing, that were natural as the runt of her litter with her two sisters to like fight her sisters off for food. You
Mhm.
know, I didn't understand what that actually meant in the long run, and
Mhm.
so, you know, that was that was a lot of education, and and you just don't know. And I'm reading Sean's another
Okay.
comment, and this is
Good.
unfortunately what happens sometimes. When I told the man whose dog rushed us what happened, he said, "Sounds like your dog dislocated your shoulder, not mine. Better to stay home in the safety of our yard." It's like, yeah,
Mm.
that's a like narcissistic response.
Yeah, defensive, super defensive, like not willing to take responsibility.
Not in the least
That's
bit. Yeah,
unfortunate,
it's very
Sean. Sorry.
unfortunate. And I'm
Yeah.
so sorry that
Yeah.
that's happened. Yeah. It's
And
not
you're right,
fun.
education is the key, but people have to be open to being educated.
Right.
Some people are closed-minded about it, and
Yes.
um, they have to be ready. They have to be open to.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to drop in something from that would not be a typical uh, traditional in the least bit training uh, notion here with these kinds of scenarios, because this is what I do also. So for those of you who don't like any kind of woo-woo-ness, just whatever, take it with a grain of salt. Take what you like, leave the rest. But this is, first of all, these kinds of scenarios happen, unfortunately. I have another client who I worked with for quite a while, whose neighborhood was just, like chock full of dogs, some of them not polite on leash, very difficult people. And she had a pit mix who had been attacked, actually lost her eye. That's how bad it was, and was traumatized from that, and would sound absolutely horrendously ferocious on leash after that. Right. And so we spent a lot of time working with that. But uh, so I understand when you live in a neighborhood, the challenges, like she would take her dog to other places, which is really a hard thing. It's just like so sad. But there's other ranges of levels of work that we can do if you're interested and open to it. And that is working with what that trauma is for us, feeling when it's easy. And I'm not saying that this is what you're doing, Sean. I'm just saying this is easy in these scenarios for us to feel like a victim, for our dogs to feel like a victim. And it triggers a sense of helplessness and powerlessness. Very
Mhm.
understandable. It's traumatizing. And it's important for us to step into our own strengths and sense of power and advocacy for ourselves and our animals so that we can feel strong in our own selves and help our animals to feel more comfortable and confident in our own skins, and that in our cultures, that's not always the case. We're not always encouraged to feel safe and strong and comfortable as women, powerful in not using power over, many of us are very attuned to how power has been used over us, but standing in your own strengths and letting your own gifts shine. And in these kinds of situations, I've really worked a lot with forgiveness of ourselves for not knowing better, forgiveness with our dogs, forgiveness with the other person, and not bypassing all the feelings like the anger, the indignation, really working with the feelings that can be very present with those situations so that we don't feel like we are um, kind of like stuck and only can like trapped,
Mhm.
in our own things. And right, like it can trigger a range of feelings, and that will be related to other things that have happened in your life. And even if it were only about this particular thing, it's for your own advantage to really be working with the what it is that comes up for you. Like that's your personal healing and your personal journey, and with your relationship with your dog or dogs and your life, as so that you can keep living your life, not with those emotions running you, right?
Mhm.
That's what old stories, old belief patterns, and trauma does. And so that part is up to us. And I've, walked in those shoes. I do it all the time. And it's an ongoing journey of our own personal healing, and how these situations can really bring us face to face. Like really, literally, we can go face to face with our emotions. I was just and this week, actually, there's been a lot of like really spending time with what you feel like when you get angry, what you feel like when you get sad, what you feel like when you're uh, 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 anxious, and being able to really recognize those things, feel the feelings, own them, and be able to help them transform so that they don't stay and you don't keep looping in those places, right?
Yeah.
And the same is true with the animals. They process things a little bit differently, but as we know, they definitely have feelings, and it's
Mhm.
important to help them be able to work through these places. And often it helps us to be able to work through places simultaneously. So it's yeah, not
Yeah,
things that traditional training would talk about, but that I have found with my work with people as well as with animals, and doing healing work and having extensive healing background in the healing arts. It's like imperative.
that's so true and so important. And the fact that it's not part of traditional training, I think, is a flaw in traditional training because it should be there. And
Yes.
just to kind of affirm for the folks listening that the thing that has helped me to manage my own um, anger or whatever when someone is not um, supportive of their animal in the way that they need to be, is that I understand that my dogs are tuned into my feelings. And if
Yes.
I get anxious and if I get angry, that my dogs are going to be distressed. So I feel like it's my responsibility to manage those feelings, to, do whatever I need to do, like take deep breaths or, um, just kind of temporarily not be around my dogs for a few minutes until I can get myself calmed down, because the dogs do pick up on that. And it's
Absolutely.
not fair to them because they feel the distress long after we get over it. They still struggle with it. So that, being aware of that has helped me to be, a better manager of my own feelings when I'm around my dog. So I just
Yes.
wanted to share
Yeah.
that with the folks.
Yes. I could continue talking about all of this for hours. And you're so
Yeah.
much fun to talk with, Marilyn.
Uh, yeah, I just absolutely love um doing the interviews that I do for the summit because we just get into these conversations that just
Mhm.
could go on and on forever. And they're so enlightening and so inspiring that it's hard it's hard to take an end to it. But um yeah, we're gonna sign off now. But Sandy, uh, I so appreciate you joining us, and thank you, Trudy, Dana, Sean, Marjorie, for jumping in with us, and anyone who's watching on Facebook. I checked, there aren't any questions
Okay.
in Facebook that I looked at, but if any of you watch this afterwards, if you watch the replay or the video and you do have questions, please put them in the Facebook comments and I will send them off to Sandy and I'm sure she'll answer you.
Yes.
So,
And I'm Sandy Rakowitz. And is it okay if I say my website in case
oh,
people don't have that
absolutely,
information?
for sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, so you can find me at oneheartuniversity.com, and that's spelled out ONE, oneheartuniversity.com, and got lots of goodies there. And um, our talk, I'm not sure which day our talk is coming out.
Yes.
My talk is coming out with you.
Your talk is not going to be until Saturday. So we have the whole week to build up.
Great.
Uh, and I'm going to be sending out and publishing the program probably by the end of today, the list of who's speaking on what day, and I'll publish that and send it to all the speakers. So you'll be able to send it out to your folks too. Um, and that so that's it. The summit starts on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it's just one exciting interview after another. I just absolutely love chatting with all of these amazing folks. So Sandy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, if, in case the people who are on are not already signed up for the Love in Action, um, uh, definitely sign up, because this is our
Yeah.
talk is one of many amazing talks that you're not on topics that you're not going to typically find as easily. Like this range of conversations is really super important and becoming more available with people like you. I mean, like this is just like one of my dreams coming true. Like this, all of these kinds of conversations about sensitive dogs coming from such a beautifully mindful, positive approach, not the dominance and force approach, and really like people who have such a beautiful way, big-hearted, educated manner about them, that I just want to appreciate you, Marilyn, for bringing all of us together and for really helping to educate people. And so if people are not already signed up for the series and just heard about this little chat, definitely sign up.
Yeah.
So
So Sandy, what you can do, I know you have your own personal sign up link. If you want to go into the Facebook group and put that in a comment in the Dog Wisdom Workshop Facebook group, I'm pretty sure you're a member. If not, ask to join. And
I need to ask to join.
yeah, well, yeah, that's the way the group works. You have to ask to join, but I have it set up for mostly automatic renewals, although some, I do go in and approve on a regular basis, because if somebody is that interested in joining the group, welcome. It's
Yeah,
welcome to everybody who wants to get in there. So yeah, if you want to do that, put your own, and if not, I can put your link in there myself.
that'd be great.
Um,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah,
way
I'm
you
in the
can sign
process
up.
of moving, so I've got like a lot of things happening right now. I have
Yeah,
movers coming on Friday, so I'm like, "Oh."
Okay, yeah, we can do that, but definitely if you're not registered, do register because you can watch all of them for free. There is a paid upgrade. It's optional. You can still watch everything for free. Registration is free. And yeah, I think you'll find it inspirational. I know that I feel very privileged because I get to personally interview all of these amazing people. So it's just very exciting. Okay. So we are going to sign off now. And Sandy, thank you so much. And when I end, I need to end this in order to stop the streaming. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
all of this inspiring, wonderful wisdom. And I hope that this kind of is supportive and encouraging for people who have challenges with leash walking their dog. And I know it's a very, very common problem. It's not isolated to just, random people here and there. It is common. And we have people who are struggling to protect their dogs. And then we have people who aren't responsible. And
Yeah.
I guess we have to just put it in those terms because we have to call it what it is. And they're just not taking responsibility. So,
Thank you everybody
okay.
for coming. Thanks again, Marilyn, for
Yeah,
creating this and
thank
having me.
you.
This is fun.
My pleasure. Okay. Bye, everybody.